The Properties panel is another one of the extremely powerful panels in the software, and it's one that you'll utilize very often. What When you select an object, what it does is it will display the properties available for that object. In this case, we have this fill stitch selected. You'll see that it displays what type of a fill pattern it is, a tatami one. It'll tell you the stitch length used, and it will tell you the density used for that object. So, which is very handy because if you want to go in and modify it, you can. And you will see, so that's the field properties, and basically how it works, the properties boxes, it's all dependent on what you have selected. At that point we had a fill stitch, now we have a run stitch selected, so it's only going to show me the properties available for the run stitch. But let's go through all of those that are available with the complex fill to give you an idea of all the tools and functions that are available in the properties box for a fill stitch. If I click here on underlay tab, you can see that the perpendicular underlay has been used in this design, and it tells you what the properties for that underlay stitch are. The push-pull, you can see in here a 0.3 value was placed as a pull compensation for this design. In the General tab, you have the ability to change what type of a connection end is used. This is your standard chiseled look, and if I zoom in on this object, you'll see that it definitely is in that chiseled mode here. And let's go back over here. So you can select it to a square to square it off, and you can see it squares off. So there's a few different options available, and you can also, this is where you would create gradient fill patterns. In your Commands tab, this is where you have the ability to set properties like before the element begins sewing out. You can have a jump, a trim, a stop. You can have it do a frame out if you're doing an applique. And chain and moss have to do with chenille. Let's see, an end command, the same thing. You can have it end a certain way. Your tie-in and tie-offs are very important. Tying in, what that does is it creates a short series of stitches that lock the stabilizer and the fabric with the thread. So it helps to catch before it starts to sew the design element. What you find is if you have thread pulling out as it's getting going, starting a new element, if you don't have a tie-in stitch, sometimes it'll unravel and it'll come loose. So you definitely want to tie in. Same thing with tying off. What that does is you use that when you're at the end of sewing a design object. It does a little tie-off stitch before the machine does a trim and moves to a different element. If you don't tie it off, it can unravel. So tying off, especially satin stitches, is very important to do. Always utilize that before a trim is going to take place at the machine. You have the Transform tab, which you're able to change the width and the height. You flip a design vertically, horizontally, or to rotate it. So those are the different tabs and features available in the properties box. And again, it is dependent on what type of stitch is selected. So you have, let's go into my sequence view here. Let me go ahead and select this run stitch right here. You can see I have different options available. It's going to tell me what the stitch length was used in that run stitch, and the type is a standard. You do have the Commands tab, and you're able to transform. So depending on what you have selected will depend on what shows up in your properties box. Again, the properties box is very powerful. This is where you'll go to edit anything. When you have something selected, it's as simple as just clicking and making a change and hitting apply, and it's going to change the object. So it's very powerful. Get to know your properties box and what all the features do. There is tutorials that will show you how to use the properties box. And if you want an explanation of what each tool does, don't hesitate to go to your contents, your help and contents, which will bring up the manual. And in the manual you'll find stitch properties. If you select it, it's going to give you an explanation of each of the sections in the properties box for the different types of satin stitches, the steel stitch, your tackle twill. So that is a great place to go if you want an explanation of what each does, what each feature and function does in the properties box. Again, that was going to help in contents and finding stitch properties. So take some time to play around in the properties box and learn what all it can do for you.